Ahead of the conference, there have already been warnings from climate activists and civil society that unless there is a marked change in the approach to climate policies, COP28 could fail to deliver any meaningful progress. Well, let's discuss this further with Equal Opportunity Campaign Manager Sydney Chisi, who now joins me live via video link from Harare in Zimbabwe. Sydney, appreciate your time today. Now, what is the purpose of COP28 and what are its goals?
Thank you very much. The Conference of Parties is a space where different nations meet annually to take stock of their efforts towards emission reduction. And every year they reflect on what each country would have done. They use a basis from the panel of experts that would have given scientific information to say this is the status of the globe and of the earth vis-a-vis issues of global warming. But they also assign every other country to what is called the nationally determined contributions, which is a national ambition on emission reduction. So each year they meet and discuss the level of efforts that would have been put for therein. So as the same countries are meeting this for the next 2 weeks in United Arab Emirates, they are meeting for the 28th time, guided by what is called the Paris Agreement. And key issues have always emerged out of this. There are issues to do with mitigation, there are issues to do with adaptation. And countries in the global south have been pushing for the countries in the global north to be equally responsible, because at the end of the day, the countries in the global south are poor, and yet they are the ones that are affected more by climate change, which they did not cause. So the global north has got a responsibility of ensuring that the global south receives such kind of finance that would also increase its adaptation towards mitigation and adaptation. So in short, that is what COP process is all about. What then takes place whilst people are there, it's mainly what we call climate diplomacy, because then the Paris Agreement in itself is not legally binding. It's based on moral persuasion of different countries. So you can't really force South Africa, neither can you force Zimbabwe or United States of America to say, why did you not do this, yet you said you were going to do that? So that is one of the major gaps that is there. And at the end of the day, the COP process becomes ritualistic. It just becomes a space where countries meet every year to routinely check on each other without necessarily pushing for critical climate action. Thank you.
Well, Sydney, you raised some very interesting points, and one of those points is that this is the 28th COP conference, so it's been 28 years since these conferences have been occurring. And you also indicated that there's an amount of research that is carried out, obviously to determine what progress, or certainly to determine what the various countries need to do. So let's look at the last 28 years and look at some of the resolutions that have come up, particularly where African countries or countries in the south, as you've called them, are concerned. Where if we take a look at Africa, their contribution to global warming is somewhere in the region of 3 to 4%. But they're suffering the bulk of the effects of global warming. Hi, Sydney, are you there?
Yes, you had gone, you had been cut, yeah. But I can hear you now.
Okay, so just bring us up to speed with what have been some of the key developments over the last 28 years, particularly when we take a look at the countries that are most affected by global warming. And these are the countries in Africa, for instance. But they're not the biggest. In fact, by a long shot, they're nowhere near the largest contribution towards global warming, contributing, I think, only 3 to 4% of carbon emissions.
Yeah, what has been happening in the 28 years has been to strengthen the Paris Agreement and the changing of text so that at least the Global South can benefit from the conversations that are happening within the Conference of Parties. And one of the resolutions that has been a huge success has been the pledge by the Global North in 2014-2015 that the Global North would pledge, that the Global North pledged 100 billion per year that is supposed to come to the Global South. But I can tell you, my brother, that not even a single cent has come down to the Global South ever since that pledge took place, because, like I said, the Paris Agreement is not a legally binding and enforcing document, so not such kind of money has come in. What we have also seen recently at COP27 was the agreement that there should be a loss and damage implementation fund, which was successfully adopted today. And we saw that in the first 20 minutes, 200 million had already been raised, particularly from Germany and United Arab Emirates. But there's no mechanism to say, where is that money going to come from? How is it going to be paid? And who is going to administer that money? One of the key elements that the Global South had been pushing against was that that money should not be in the hands of the World Bank because of our history in the Global South with the Bretton Woods institutions in terms of the money that comes to Global South being more of loans and not grants. So we cannot persuade developing countries to push for money or for adaptation and not money for development to already indebted countries in crisis.
Well,
so that's another element.
Allow me to ask my final question, and that's around the urgency of climate action. How does the COP28 president emphasize this urgency? I mean, we've seen the catastrophes across the African continent, the weather phenomena in southern Africa, for instance, the Horn of Africa. In fact, it's all over the continent.
No, there is agents that people talk about, but there is no agents in terms of how it is acted upon, because all these things require money and they require financial assistance, and that money is not coming through. What we are beginning to see is that the globe is getting hotter, it's getting drier, and people are beginning to suffer from many consequences. But the question is, who is going to make the first move of ensuring that those countries affected by such kind of climate challenges get the finances? So whilst it is urgent, whilst the signs tell us that the world is going to be hotter and is going to be drier and the icebergs are going to melt faster than they used to be, the move towards mitigation and adaptation is very slow. And recently, the inclusion of the role of the private sector in climate action has also been met with very serious reservations in terms of then allowing the very same polluters to be part and parcel of being the solution givers. So we still continue going around in circles. Like I said, the COP process becomes more ritualistic than a real space where climate action can be put into place. What is left is for individual countries to come up with their own internal mechanisms of climate action, climate mitigation, and build adaptation capacities of their communities so that countries can actually resolve climate action at their local level.
Chisi, Campaign Manager, Equal Opportunity, appreciate those insights into COP28.